I woke up in the hospital room to see my husband Oliver kissing the nurse. I secretly recorded their conversation on my phone and immediately called my lawyer. Hello, I'm Truly, and welcome to my channel. For more stories, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Also, please let me know where you are hearing this from in the comments below. The smell of frying bacon woke me up. My birthday. I stretched, a goofy smile plastered on my face, and padded barefoot towards the kitchen. Oliver, my Oliver, was standing at the stove, spatula in hand. He was a disaster in the kitchen, usually leaving a trail of flour and burnt offerings in his wake. This breakfast spectacle was already suspicious. The moment he turned around, I knew something was up. He's never been good at hiding his emotions or lying. His eyes were sparkling, practically radiating joy, and he was smiling from ear to ear, a smile that reached all the way to the crinkles around his eyes. It was the kind of smile he usually reserved for puppies, winning football games, or, well, me, on a really good day. Happy birthday, sunshine. He boomed, abandoning the bacon to engulf me in a hug. He smelled vaguely of coffee and something that might have been cleaning fluid. 32 looks damn good on you. 32 feels damn good, I chuckled, returning his hug. What's with the breakfast? Did you finally crack the code to the kitchen? He winked. Let's just say I had a very helpful assistant. Be careful, the bacon is divine. I eyed the bacon suspiciously. It actually looked edible, maybe even crispy. An assistant? Who's been slumming in my kitchen? He just grinned wider, a mischievous glint in his eyes. Patience, my love. All will be revealed. The morning unfolded like a carefully orchestrated dream. Oliver showered me with gifts. A stunning emerald necklace, my birthstone, a weekend getaway to a cozy cabin in the mountains, and a handwritten card that brought tears to my eyes. He'd even managed to book a massage at my favorite spa. I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. We spent the afternoon laughing and reminiscing, flipping through old photo albums and retelling stories we'd told 100 times before. Oliver was unusually attentive, showering me with compliments and making sure my glass was always full. It was like we were falling in love all over again. That evening he took me to our favorite Italian restaurant, the one where we had our first date. The atmosphere was perfect, the food was delicious, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. As we walked home hand in hand under the starry sky, I couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment, a deep and abiding love for the man beside me. Then, everything went black. I dreamt of the past. The static started subtly, like a low hum beneath the surface of our lives, barely perceptible at first. It was in the way Oliver's eyes didn't quite meet mine when I asked about his day. The way he'd flinch almost imperceptibly when my hand brushed his. The way he'd started taking his phone into the bathroom with him. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5. Oliver was a good man. He was kind, dependable, and annoyingly punctual. We'd built a comfortable life, a life punctuated by Sunday brunches, quiet evenings reading by the fire, and the comfortable silence that comes with understanding. But lately, the silence felt different. He worked as a doctor at the local hospital. We met at a fundraiser. I always admired his dedication to his work. The first time I noticed the static crackle into something more defined, it was the perfume. Oliver usually smelled of antiseptic and clean cotton from the hospital laundry. But one Tuesday evening, as he walked through the door, a sweet floral scent clung to him, like honeysuckle and something else. Something sharper, more expensive. New patient used too much perfume today? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. Something like that. You know how some people are. I did know. But I also knew Oliver, and he wasn't usually so dismissive. He would usually have a story or some other explanation. The static intensified. Then there were the late nights. Oliver had always worked long hours. That was the nature of his profession. But lately, the calls had become more frequent, more urgent. Emergency surgery, he'd say, already grabbing his coat. Or, I need to check on a patient. I started to wonder which patient needed so much attention at ungodly hours. One evening, I decided to surprise him at the hospital. I packed a picnic basket with his favorite sandwiches and a thermos of hot tea. I even wore the red dress he loved, the one he said made my eyes sparkle. The receptionist smiled when I asked for Oliver. He's in surgery right now, Mrs. Davies. You can wait in the doctor's lounge if you like. I thanked her and made my way to the lounge, picturing Oliver's surprised smile when I walked in. But he wasn't in surgery. He was in the hallway, outside a dimly lit room, talking to a woman. She was tall, with long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing scrubs, and a name tag identified her as Nurse Anya Petrova. They were close. Too close. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the way Oliver's eyes lingered on her face, the way he leaned in when she spoke, sent a jolt of ice water through my veins. I turned and fled, the picnic basket suddenly feeling like a lead weight in my hand. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned. The image of Oliver and Anya burned into my mind. The static was now a deafening roar. "Oliver," I said, when he finally came to bed, his face pale with exhaustion. "Who is Anya Petrova?" He stiffened beside me. "She's a nurse," he said carefully. "She works with me." "How closely does she work with you, Oliver?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "What's going on, Charlotte? Why are you asking me this?" "Because I saw you with her tonight, Oliver. I saw the way you looked at her." He was silent for a long moment. "You're imagining things," he said finally. "Anya is just a colleague. She's been very helpful lately with my patients." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. But the doubt had taken root, and it was growing, poisoning everything. "I don't believe you," I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. He didn't say anything. He simply turned away from me and closed his eyes. The next few weeks were a blur of tension and unspoken accusations. Oliver became more distant, more withdrawn. I found myself constantly checking his phone, scrutinizing his clothes for any sign of perfume, any trace of her. I became consumed by the idea that he was cheating on me. I started to see signs everywhere, a lingering smile, a hastily deleted text message, a mumbled excuse. Each perceived transgression felt like a fresh wound, deepening the ache in my chest. We argued. Bitter, hurtful arguments that left us both raw and exhausted. We were tearing each other apart, slowly, methodically. "Why are you doing this, Charlotte?" Oliver asked one night, his voice laced with frustration. "Why are you trying to destroy us?" "I'm not trying to destroy us, Oliver," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm trying to save us, but I can't do it alone." "Then trust me," he pleaded. "Just trust me." But trust was a fragile thing, and ours had been shattered. The next thing I knew, I was staring at a sterile white ceiling, the beeping of machines the only sound in the room. His words, "just trust me," echoed in my head. Disoriented, I tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through my arm. I looked down to see an IV drip attached to my wrist. Where was I? What had happened? Slowly, fragments of memory began to surface. The restaurant, the walk home, the sharp, blinding pain in my head. A car. Sirens. Panic clawed at my throat. Oliver. Was he okay? Just then, the door opened, and Oliver walked in, his face etched with worry. Relief washed over me, so potent it almost knocked me back down. "Charlotte, thank God, you're awake." He rushed to my side, his hand finding mine. His touch, usually comforting, felt different, distant. "Oliver, what happened? Where are we?" I asked, my voice raspy. He explained that we'd been hit by a drunk driver. I'd been knocked unconscious, suffered a concussion and a broken arm. He'd been lucky, only minor injuries. "I was so worried," he said, squeezing my hand, but his eyes didn't quite meet mine. Over the next few days, I remained in the hospital, slowly recovering. Oliver visited every day, but something felt off. He was attentive, yes, but his affection felt forced, like he was playing a role. He avoided eye contact, and his stories seemed rehearsed. The spark, the genuine joy I'd seen on my birthday morning, was gone. One afternoon, I woke up from a nap feeling particularly weak and disoriented. Oliver was sitting by my bedside, but he wasn't alone. A young, attractive nurse was leaning over him. I quietly watched, pretending to be asleep, as she gently brushed a stray strand of hair from his forehead, her fingers lingering a little too long. And then, he kissed her. It wasn't a chaste peck on the cheek. It was a full-blown, passionate kiss, the kind he used to reserve for me. My heart seized in my chest, a sharp, agonizing pain that had nothing to do with my physical injuries. Numb with shock and betrayal, I reached for my phone, which was thankfully on the bedside table. My hands trembled as I opened the voice recorder app and pressed record. "I'm so glad you're okay, Oliver," the nurse cooed. her voice saccharine sweet. "You were so brave during the accident." "It was nothing," Oliver said, his voice low and husky. "The important thing is that Charlotte is recovering." "Speaking of Charlotte," the nurse said, drawing closer to him, "how much longer do you think she'll be incapacitated?" Oliver hesitated for a moment, then lowered his voice even further. "The doctors say a few more weeks, maybe longer. It all depends on how her recovery goes." "And then?" she pressed, her voice laced with anticipation. Oliver sighed. "And then, well, things will be different. Very different." He leaned in and kissed her again, a deep, lingering kiss that made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, to rip them apart, but I was frozen in place, paralyzed by disbelief and pain. The recording continued for several more minutes, filled with whispered words, stolen kisses, and veiled promises. They talked about our life together, our future, as if I were already gone. They talked about us like we were a burden. They talked about her moving in. They talked about my life insurance. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the nurse left the room, leaving Oliver alone with his thoughts. He sat there for a moment, staring blankly ahead, a look of grim determination on his face. As soon as he left to grab a cup of coffee, I stopped the recording, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone. The evidence was there, clear and undeniable. My husband was having an affair. He was planning something that involved my incapacitation, my life insurance, and this nurse. Tears streamed down my face, hot and angry. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly heartbroken. But beneath the pain, a cold, hard resolve began to form. I wouldn't let him get away with this. My first call was to my lawyer, Sarah. Sarah had been a family friend as well as our lawyer for years. I explained the situation, my voice trembling with emotion. I told her about the accident, the nurse, and the recording. Sarah listened without interrupting, her voice calm and reassuring on the other end of the line. When I finished, she said, "Charlotte, I am so sorry this is happening to you. But don't worry, we're going to handle this. I want you to stay calm and focus on your recovery. I'll take care of everything else." "Sarah, he's planning something," I said, my voice cracking. "I don't know what, but I'm scared." "I understand," she said. "We'll get a restraining order immediately. I'll also have a private investigator look into the accident and Oliver's relationship with this nurse. We need to gather as much evidence as possible." Over the next few weeks, Sarah worked tirelessly on my case. The private investigator uncovered a web of deceit, revealing that Oliver had been having an affair with the nurse for months, that he had taken out a larger life insurance policy on me just weeks before the accident, and that he had a history of financial problems. The restraining order was granted, and Oliver was forbidden from contacting me or coming near the hospital. The relief that washed over me was immense, but I knew this was just the beginning. Finally, the day came when I was discharged from the hospital. Sarah was there to meet me, her presence a comforting constant in a world that had suddenly turned upside down. "Are you ready?" she asked, her eyes filled with concern. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready as I'll ever be." We drove straight to the courthouse, where we filed for divorce and initiated legal proceedings against Oliver for attempted fraud and conspiracy. The evidence was overwhelming, and Oliver had no defense. The divorce was swift and brutal. Oliver was stripped of everything: our house, our savings, his reputation. He lost his job, his friends, and ultimately, his freedom. The nurse, realizing the extent of his deception and the potential legal consequences, quickly distanced herself from him. As I sat in the courtroom listening to the judge pronounce Oliver guilty, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, vindication, and a profound sense of sadness. I had loved him once, with all my heart, but he had betrayed that love in the most unforgivable way. In the end, I emerged from the ashes of my shattered marriage stronger and more resilient than I ever thought possible. I focused on my recovery, surrounded myself with loved ones, and began to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy, but I refused to let Oliver's betrayal define me. Years later, I met someone new, a kind and gentle man who loved me for who I was, flaws and all. We built a life together, filled with laughter, honesty, and unwavering support. And as I looked back on the dark chapter of my life with Oliver, I realized that I had not only survived, but thrived. He had tried to break me, but he had only made me stronger. And every year on my birthday, I made a point of celebrating my resilience, my strength, and my hard-won freedom. because I had learned that the greatest gift of all was the ability to love myself, and to never ever let anyone take that away from me. The emerald necklace? Well, that went to a battered women's shelter, a reminder that even the darkest of betrayals can be turned into something beautiful, something that can help others find their own light.